When I bought the old farmhouse on the edge of Maple Creek, I imagined peaceful days restoring the barn, raising chickens, and maybe even starting a small vineyard. The land was generous, 10 acres of gentle hills and thick woods, with a gravel road that curved up to my house. It wasn't just property, it was my sanctuary. The property sat adjacent to Oak Hollow, a pristine, cookie-cutter suburban development run by the most notorious HOA in the county. I learned quickly that the HOA president, Karen Middleton, ran the neighborhood like a dictator. Her lawn was the greenest, her shutters matched seasonally, and her voice could summon contractors or citations with equal ease. Karen had a reputation. Her emails to homeowners were the stuff of legend, meticulous, passive-aggressive masterpieces detailing infractions like flag placement irregularities or unauthorized use of beige trim. I had no intention of ever dealing with her. Then she started driving over my land. There was a paved HOA-maintained road that curved around Oak Hollow and ended in a cul-de-sac. But Karen decided it was more efficient to cut across my gravel path, which split off from the main road and curved around the woods to my house. Her white Lexus, shiny and smug, rolled over my property twice a day, once on her way out, once on her way home. At first, I gave her the benefit of the doubt. Maybe she was confused. I walked over and politely explained that she was on private land. She smiled sweetly and said, "Well, the road isn't fenced off, is it? And it's gravel. It looks public to me." I clarified, gently, that my property line was clearly marked on the survey and that I didn't want anyone driving through. "You should take that up with the HOA," she said, as if she didn't personally run the HOA. Then she drove off, tires crunching defiantly. The next morning, the tire tracks were fresh again. I posted signs, "Private property. No trespassing." She ignored them. When I put up a temporary fence along the road, she tore it down. I found the posts knocked over and the mesh ripped away like some act of vandalism. There were no witnesses, no camera footage, just her Lexus again barreling past as if nothing had happened. I went to the local authorities. The sheriff's deputy shrugged and said, "If she ain't doing damage and there's no easement, it's trespassing. But you'll need proof." I installed a trail cam in the trees. It caught her twice a day, same time, driving with the same smug look. I mailed her a printed copy of the photo with a handwritten note. "Last warning. Stay off my land." She responded with a letter from the HOA, not her personal address. It was pompous and dense, quoting bylaws and referencing outdated easement rumors. Nothing legally binding. Just a paper shield. Her route wasn't necessity. It was entitlement. Her actual driveway was less than 50 feet longer through Oak Hollow. But for Karen, control was everything. And my land? It was her shortcut, her domain. I tried meeting with the HOA. They wouldn't even let me into the clubhouse. "You're not a resident," the receptionist said. "You have no business with Oak Hollow affairs." That same night, I found trash dumped near the road, fast food bags, a broken planter, and the remnants of a yard sign reading, "Welcome Spring." It wasn't subtle. It was a declaration. I consulted a lawyer who confirmed my rights were intact. They have no easement, no access. Legally, you can barricade, trench, fence, whatever you want. But be ready for escalation. I thought about it for days. Every morning I woke up, the tire tracks were there. Every evening, the crunch of gravel as her car rolled by, like clockwork. I realized something then. This wasn't about land. It was about power. And I was done being passive. It started subtly. First, an envelope on my doorstep. No stamp, no postmark, just the Oak Hollow HOA emblem in gold foil. "Dear Mr. Jacob Grant," it began, "it has come to our attention that the access road to your property may pose a safety hazard to residents and is in violation of Oak Hollow easement ordinances. You are required to allow unrestricted vehicular access to prevent liability." I laughed out loud. Oak Hollow had no jurisdiction over my land. My driveway was on my property, which was zoned agricultural, not residential. There were no public access agreements, no easements. The HOA could puff its chest all it wanted. I had the deeds to prove it. Still, I sent a formal letter back. There is no legal easement.
You are trespassing.
Cease and desist. The next day, I found a complaint filed with the county zoning board. Oak Hollow claimed I had illegal structures on my land. That same week, an inspector showed up unannounced, clipboard in hand. Got a report about non-permitted outbuildings, he said, squinting at the barn I was restoring. That barn's over 70 years old. I'm fixing the roof, not building a skyscraper. He nodded, took photos, and left. No fines, no citations. Just hassle. Then came the drone. It buzzed over my fields like an angry wasp, hovering, zipping, filming. I waved it off the first time, assuming some kid in Oak Hollow got a new toy. But it returned the next day and the next, circling my property. I tracked its flight path back to the HOA clubhouse. I sent an email. If your drone enters my airspace again, I will shoot it down. No response. That weekend, my mailbox was smashed. Not knocked over, obliterated. The metal twisted like a crushed can. A single red rose was left on top. I filed a police report. Nothing came of it. Neighbors stopped waving. Even the ones who once bought eggs from me at the farmer's market wouldn't meet my eyes. One whispered, "Karen says you're making trouble. You better watch out." I confronted her again. Drove over to her perfect little palace with its color-matched tulips and vinyl siding. She opened the door, wine glass in hand. "You're becoming a problem," she said. "You're trespassing. And harassing. This neighborhood values unity. You're not contributing to that. I'm not in your neighborhood." She smirked. "But your driveway crosses a community access point. And if you continue obstructing residents, I'll be forced to file a formal complaint with the township." "You do that," I said, turning to leave. "Oh, and Jacob? You really should pave that road. It's an eyesore." The door closed in my face. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at satellite images of my land, pulling property maps, scrolling through public records. Karen's attacks weren't just petty now, they were coordinated. She was weaponizing bureaucracy. I printed everything. Every email, every photo, every letter. I put together a binder the size of a law textbook. I highlighted. I annotated. Then I made a decision. No more warnings. I would make sure she couldn't drive over my land again. And when she tried, I'd be ready. At 4:30 a.m., I was in the shed, pulling the tarp off the old Massey Ferguson. Rust clung to the frame like barnacles, but the engine was strong. It had pulled tree stumps and hauled hay bales for decades. Today, it had a new mission. The trench would run across the gravel path, deep enough to stop a car, shallow enough not to drain into the creek. I mapped it out the night before with chalk and wooden stakes, measuring twice, digging once. By sunrise, I had the blade down and was carving through the earth. Dirt flew.
Sweat poured.
My arms ached, but I didn't stop. I was possessed, driven by every passive-aggressive note, every denied meeting, every smug glance from behind a tinted Lexus windshield. Mid-morning, the trench was done. 3 feet wide, 2.5 feet deep, stretching across the path like a scar. I placed orange flags and 2 bright yellow signs. Road closed, private property, trespassers will be towed. Then I parked the tractor off to the side, camera rolling, and waited. At 4:46 p.m., right on schedule, I heard the Lexus. It rounded the bend, slowed for a split second, then accelerated. She was going to try it. The front tires hit the trench, and the Lexus lurched like a wounded animal. The undercarriage scraped with a metallic shriek, the wheels spun, and the car sunk, nose first into the trench. The rear lifted slightly before thudding back down. I stepped out, slowly, deliberately, like it was a Western standoff. Karen flung open the door, high heels clicking against the gravel. "What have you done?" "Prevented trespassing. You were warned. This is illegal. You can't just dig up a road. My road. My land. And you've been filmed trespassing for weeks." She glared at the trail cam. "Get me out of here.
Now."
"Sure," I said, walking over to the tractor. I hit record on my phone, then attached the tow chain from the Lexus undercarriage to the hitch. You're not qualified to operate heavy machinery. I grew up on a farm. You're lucky I don't use a manure spreader. The tires of the tractor churned. The Lexus groaned. With a slow, theatrical pull, I dragged her car backwards out of the trench and halfway down the path. I unhooked the chain and tossed it aside. Next time, call a tow truck. Or better yet, take your own road. Karen was fuming, hair disheveled, heels muddy. You haven't heard the end of this. I look forward to it. She peeled off, wheels spinning angrily. That night, I uploaded the video to a private link and sent it to the local sheriff, my lawyer, and yes, even the HOA email list that had previously rejected my access. It didn't take long. The video leaked. Local Facebook groups exploded. HOA Karen gets towed off farmer's land became the county's favorite late-night entertainment. Comments flooded in. She got what she deserved. Don't mess with country folk. Team Jacob all the way. Karen tried to respond, calling it an act of aggression. She claimed emotional distress, threatened civil action. But it was too late. The court of public opinion had already ruled. The county commissioner even chimed in. Private landowners have the right to protect their property. HOA overreach is not tolerated. Within a week, Karen received a citation from the sheriff's office for trespassing. The trench remained.
So did the signs.
And suddenly, no one from Oak Hollow tried cutting through my land again. But the war wasn't over. Karen was quiet for a while. Too quiet. The kind of silence that feels like something's brewing. One night, I came home to find tire spikes scattered on the far end of my driveway. 3 tires blown. Someone had snuck onto my property and planted them. The message was clear. I installed motion-sensing floodlights, more cameras, and even talked to my neighbor across the creek, who agreed to keep an eye out. 2 nights later, a shadow triggered the lights. I rushed outside with a flashlight and caught a figure in a black hoodie sprinting back toward Oak Hollow. The camera caught enough. The build, the hair, the gait. It was Karen's son. I filed a second police report. The sheriff visited her personally. And that was the last I saw of her. Not her Lexus. Not her drone. Not her letters. Oak Hollow was silent. And my land?
Peaceful again.
But the trench stayed. A monument. A warning. A line, both literal and symbolic, between power abused and power reclaimed. I had drawn that line. And I dared anyone to cross it. Spring came to Maple Creek, and with it, a sense of uneasy calm. The air was warming, birds returned to the trees, and my vineyard rose began to bud with cautious optimism. But I knew Karen's silence was not surrender. It was retreat. And retreat is often just the setup for one final strike. I kept to myself, tending my crops, maintaining my trench, and checking my cameras every morning. For a while, there was nothing. No drones. No late-night visits. Not even a passive-aggressive letter in my mailbox. Then one morning I woke up to a knock at the door. It wasn't the sheriff or a neighbor. It was a man in a suit. "Jacob Grant?" he asked. "Yes. You've been served. Civil litigation. Karen Middleton versus Jacob Grant. Filed in county court. Claim: defamation, emotional distress, and property damage." She was suing me. The core of her argument? That I had publicly humiliated her, damaged her car, and caused irreparable harm to her reputation in Oak Hollow. She even claimed to suffer from anxiety and sleeplessness due to the incident. My lawyer laughed when he saw the complaint. "She's grasping at straws," he said. "She trespassed, ignored written warnings, destroyed your property, and was caught on camera. We counter, and we countersue." So that's what we did. I filed a countersuit for trespassing, vandalism, harassment, and damages to my fence and mailbox. I submitted every shred of evidence: videos, photos, witness statements, repair receipts, police reports. We stacked the binder 3 inches thick. Word of the lawsuit spread fast. Local reporters started sniffing around. One asked if they could interview me for a segment on HOA abuse and the rights of rural homeowners. I declined the camera, but gave them a quote. "I just wanted to be left alone. I don't think that's too much to ask." Karen didn't stay quiet. She wrote an op-ed in the Oak Hollow newsletter titled "Standing Up to Bullies, A President's Duty." It was peak Karen, flowery language, legal half-truths, and just enough victimhood to rouse sympathy. For a moment, I thought it might work. But then came discovery. In court, her side had to disclose communications. Emails surfaced, dozens of them between her and other HOA board members, discussing how to force Jacob into compliance, buy out his land by legal coercion, and even plant HOA signs on the disputed road to establish claim. There it was. The real plan. They had hoped to wear me down until I caved. To make life miserable enough that I'd sell, give in, or disappear. One email ended with, "He won't last 6 months. Not with what we have planned." That email changed everything. The judge dismissed Karen's lawsuit, laughed it out of the courtroom. He ruled in my favor on the countersuit, ordered her to pay restitution for damages, legal fees, and issued a restraining order. She was barred from setting foot on my land ever again. But the fallout didn't end there. Local news ran a full expose. HOA power trip, how one landowner fought back. The Oak Hollow community was shaken. The HOA board held an emergency meeting. The minutes leaked. Karen was voted out. 3 board members resigned in the days that followed. A petition to dissolve the HOA entirely gained traction, and by midsummer, more than half the residents had signed it. Neighbors who once ignored me now stopped by with baskets of zucchini or fresh-baked bread. Some apologized. One, an elderly widow named Mrs. Langston, tearfully confessed she was afraid to speak up before. Karen made everyone scared. We thought she could ruin us. I rebuilt the fence, paved my own driveway, just to make it clearer. The trench remained, a little shallower now, but still a scar that reminded everyone who crossed it why it existed. Karen sold her house. Rumor was she moved to a condo across town, where she wasn't allowed to serve on any committees. The Lexus was sold too, replaced by a beige Toyota Corolla. Symbolic in a way. As for me, I finally planted my first row of grapes. The vineyard I dreamed of was becoming real. No tire tracks. No HOA letters. Just soil, sun, and silence. I stood at the edge of my land one evening, watching the sun dip low behind the trees, golden light spilling across the fields. Peaceful. Earned. And I smiled. Because sometimes when people think they can drive over you, the best thing you can do is dig in your heels. And dig a trench.